I'm here with Chris Hedges and America's comedian Kurt Metzger. And Putin announced that he's annexing parts of Ukraine in defiance of international law.
You got the jokes?
Oh, wait, thank you. In defiance of international law. I like how CNN says that when it's Russia, but when the United States is occupying a third of Syria, you know, the part where they have all the oil, that they never said that's in defiance of international law. It's weird how the CNN can get it right when it's another. But I could make a joke about all the things that we do in violation of international law, but all I can imagine is that I'm saying it to Michael Smerconish or some asshole like that, and I'd just be wasting my time.
Yeah.
Right? And also, since when do we give a shit about anyone breaking international law? Who cares about that? We run the streets. We're Tony Soprano. The Russians can't move in on our turf. President Vladimir Putin announced Russia would seize nearly a fifth of Ukraine on Friday, declaring that the millions of people living there would be Russian citizens forever.
Forever.
Under the annexation process, which is illegal under international law, Moscow will recognize 4 Ukrainian regions as Russian territory. Luhansk, Donetsk, home to 2 Russian-backed breakaway republics where fighting has been ongoing since 2014. I love how they say that. As well as Kherson and, I can't even say that, Zaporozhye, the 2 areas in southern Ukraine that have been occupied by Russian forces since shortly after the invasion began. Now, let me bring in Chris Hedges right away on this. They had referendums where they voted, the people in those areas where he just annexed, they had a vote. And they said they wanted to be annexed by Russia. What do you now? A lot of everybody in the West said those are fraudulent elections. What do you say to those, Chris? You have experience in this kind of thing.
So, you know, I've covered, and you certainly can't trust the characterization in Iraq, and everybody had their thumbs were, and we set up all sorts of Shiite death squads with a former colonel who I knew in El Salvador. I mean. So at this point, our own press is not reliable. I don't trust Russia's press either. I mean, the official press. I covered war, and both sides lie like they breathe. But I think there is historical weight to a feeling among ethnic Russians that they not only traditionally feel close to Moscow, but after the 2014 U.S.-backed coup. That they were targets. That's just historical fact.
So people don't realize that there was a coup in Ukraine. It was backed by the United States, the CIA. We got in bed with literal Nazis to kill citizens who were protesting to help overthrow that government that was leaning towards being more friendly to Russia than it was going to be to the European Union economically. It's all about economics. And so we instituted a coup. And we get a puppet in there. And then the people start shelling the Russian-speaking people in the Donbass. And they're supposed to not do that, right? So they had a peace agreement called the Minsk Accords, which no one ever talks about in the United States on corporate media. And that was an agreement that Ukraine would allow those people in those areas in the Donbass, that they would have their own elections and they would be more independent, and that they would, more importantly, they would stop shelling them. They never did. They kept shelling the Donbass, which is what Putin used as a reason for his invasion. Right? So it was provoked. Now, that's not me saying that it was provoked. That's Henry Kissinger and Noam Chomsky and everybody in between said it was provoked. The only people who aren't saying it's provoked are people who are being directly paid by American media and the military-industrial complex today. Okay, that it was provoked. So people never talk about that, and they don't realize that's why Putin actually invaded. And that's the parts of the country that he's now annexing are the people who they were trying to kill. Ukraine Nazis have been trying to kill for the last 8-9 years, right?
Yeah, and there was the other side of that. Of course, we have that leaked tape with Victoria Nuland, but there was this was part of a long trajectory going back to 1989. So I had covered, as a reporter, East Germany, Romania, and the whole discussion of the expansion of NATO was a very important topic with the unification of Germany, and the promises were made, as you know, Hans-Dietrich Genscher and James Baker and everybody else promised Gorbachev that NATO would not be expanded because the Soviet Empire had collapsed and they saw Russia as weak, and because they believed in this kind of unipolar world, these nutcases, some of whom I mentioned, the Kagans, etc., the neocons, they pushed forward, even though George Kennan, even Burns, what we know from the WikiLeaks cable drop, that they all knew what they were doing. So after the 2014 coup, and they talked about, not provoking Russia by expanding NATO and in particular into the Ukraine. But after the 2014 coup, Ukraine became a de facto NATO country. We had military advisors. We pumped all sorts of weapons.
Yeah, we were sending weapons all the time.
Be cognizant of the historical trauma that Russians bear. Twice in the 20th century, they were invaded through Ukraine. First in World War I, second in World War II, and the century before that, of course, Napoleon. It's completely legitimate to ask that Ukraine remain a neutral country. And I think the tragedy, you saw it with Putin's speech, which was pretty angry and vitriolic, but I think with good reason. And again, I'm not in any way defending the invasion of Ukraine. It's preemptive war. It's under post-Nuremberg laws, a criminal war of aggression. But we have to understand, and to understand is not to condone.
Right. He was provoked. That doesn't mean...
Are carried out, and our own culpability in creating them, which the Sovietologists, Burns and Kennan, of course, called the expansion of NATO the greatest post-war blunder in post-Cold War history. So, but with Gorbachev, Yeltsin, and in the early years of Putin, what they wanted was to create both a security and an economic alliance with the United States. The war industry loses billions upon billions of dollars, coupled with the hubris of these neocons who thought that they were now the king of the world, that there would, it's the end of history. Nothing will ever stand in front of American hegemony, and if it does, we'll stomp them out. And they took that attitude, of course, to Russia. So it's as if we're having an argument about World War II and we're talking about the Versailles Treaty and the reparations that we forced Weimar Germany to pay and all this kind of stuff. That doesn't end up at a point. And we should study history. I mean, we should be culturally, historically, linguistically literate because there was no reason for this. I fully believe, having worked in Eastern Europe at the end of the Cold War as a reporter, that Putin would not have invaded Ukraine if we hadn't done this.
Wait, Chris, I mean, that sounds all well and good, but have you maybe considered that Putin is just a madman? I mean, he did blow up his own pipelines.
Well, here's the area we're talking about. I just want to let people know. So here's the area. Take Chris off for a second so I can show. So here's Ukraine, here's Russia, and here's the part that we're talking about. So I'm pretty sure this is Crimea that's already been taken. So this is the part he's annexing. And
where's the game-changing part they took back?
Right. They were, big game changer. So this is how CNN reports it, that Putin repeated his unfounded allegation that genocide was being committed against Russian speakers, one of the false pretenses Russia used to invade Ukraine in February. That's not a false pretense. We just told you what was happening. They've been bombing and shelling this area right here since 2014.
Ongoing fighting, it said in their own article.
In their article, they call it
ongoing fighting.
Ongoing fighting.
It's not genocide. You don't have to get unfounded about it.
Right. So Putin gave a speech where he antagonized the West. He called Western leaders, I'm going to paraphrase, but he called them the bitches of the United States, and that they had a mommy and a daddy, and that they know what's going on and they're going along with it because none of them will stand up. And he was challenging somebody to stand up to the Western imperialism and that he's calling us gangsters. We are. He was 100% right. That's the thing. And what people don't realize is that most of the world isn't with us. on this. Like the global south is not with, Africa is not with us and Ukraine and Russia. China certainly isn't. So this idea that the whole world is that's what we think in the United States, the people who watch corporate news. They think the whole world is on with us, with Russia. It is not. It is not. Anyway, we could talk about this all day, but I was anything you'd like to say before we to wrap this up about him annexing?
Americans thought the whole world was with us on Iraq.
Yeah.
I
Try
think you
bringing
could
it up.
You could count the countries that supported us, if not on one hand, certainly two.
Try telling Joy Behar. She'll go, get over it.
Get over it. That's what she'll say. Get over it. It's over. It was a long time ago, Iraq War.
We can talk about that. But right now, Putin is a madman.
Chris, we're having unfortunate internet problems, so I was hoping to have you on longer today, but I'm going to have to let you go because it's just too bad right now for some reason.
All right.
And
no
so
problem, Jimmy.
I want to say thank you so much, and I'm bummed that we can't have you on for longer, but thanks for making yourself available. I look forward to reading your book and have you back on to talk about it.
Okay, thanks.
Good to meet you, man.
Okay, talk to you later, Chris. Virginia Beach, Richmond, Arlington, San Jose, Miami, West Palm Beach. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets and become a premium member while you're there.